Hello, the great crowd and the little flock. Throughout Watchtower publications, there is the underlying false promise that there are two classes of believers, and every interpretation of the Watchtower is put through that grid. In the Watchtower, July 15th, 1980, depiction of Jehovah's arrangement for his sheep, the great majority of the sheep are outside of the sheepfold. If that was the case in 1980, it certainly is more so today. It brings to mind Matthew 9:36. When Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. How did this division in the Good Shepherd's flock come about? The Watchtower, which identified itself with 144,000, had outgrown that number in 1935 by its own insupportable calculations. But the Watchtower was stuck, and the only solution to its self-made predicament was new light. The two-category system was a 1935 invention of the Watchtower. To divert attention from the real question, the September 1st, 1998 Watchtower states, "Some have questioned whether it's fair that some have a heavenly hope while others have an earthly hope. No, we don't question whether it is fair. We question whether it is scriptural." The Watchtower also says, "Those with an earthly hope are not just those with a heavenly hope." Again, that is not the point. The point is whether it is scriptural. For support of this doctrine that has such a far-reaching effects, the Watchtower simply refers to John 10:16. But John 10:16 says the very opposite. "I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them. They too are listening to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd." Notice, one flock. What justification is there for connecting this John 10:16 passage with the number 144,000 in the book of Revelation? None. Paul interprets what Jesus meant in John 10:16 when he says to the Gentiles, Ephesians 2:11-22, "Remember that the time you were separate from Christ, excluded from citizenship in Israel, and foreigners to the covenants of the promise, without hope and without God in the world. But now in Christ Jesus, you who once were far away and have been brought near through the blood of Christ, for he has made the two one and has destroyed the barrier, thus making peace, and in this one body to reconcile both of them to God through the cross. The two groups that Jesus was talking about in John 10:16 are the believing Jews and the believing Gentiles, or people of the nations, as the Watchtower puts it, who will be brought together into one flock, John 10:16, as the gospel message goes out. Very clear, isn't it? See also John 11:51-52. Caiaphas, the high priest, prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation, and not only for that nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. Something here, one flock. Let's look at 1 Peter 2:9-10, a passage which the Watchtower applies exclusively to the 144,000. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation of people belonging to God, that you may declare the praise of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Again, there is no justification for applying this to an elite few. The context of this passage shows that it is addressed to those who believe. It identifies two groups only, believers and unbelievers. That is, and the Watchtower will hardly categorize the great crowd or unbelievers. Among all people on earth, there are only two categories, believers and unbelievers. All believers comprise the one category, the little flock. The little flock, because they are a minority compared by the number of unbelievers, but not limited to 144,000. See Matthew 7:13-14. As to the destiny of believers, John 12:26 says, "Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, my servant also will be. My Father will honor the one who serves me." Jesus promises all his servants that there is that way he will be. The Watchtower teaches that only 144 will gain entrance to heaven, and the rest will reside on the earth. The passage teaches that his servants, every believer, will be with Christ where he is. Much more could be said about this subject. Thank you.